I always made a joke to my wife, if you go missing on this trip and they search our room, they're gonna think foul play or something crazy going on because he literally got your blood all over the room, and I like cleaned it up as best I can. Yeah, that could have been that could have been interesting to try to talk myself out of that. Hey guys, in this video, it's a little something different. I'm gonna give you 7 things I found shocking about Italy. So this is obviously from my perspective as an American who had never been in Europe, but I traveled there the first time and took a vacation in Italy, Rome, and then Venice. And I'll go over a bunch of fun stuff because it's really a place that everybody should visit at least once. And this will kind of give you guys who haven't been there yet like a little bit of an idea of what you might be able to expect. Before getting that list, I want to give a special quick shout out to my sponsor, Let's Get Checked. Basically, to enjoy your life, to enjoy a vacation or anything else, you need ideally optimal health, and you could get all these different tests that you would go to the doctor and get a physical. You could do all these kind of tests in the convenience of your own home, even get your testosterone checked, etc. Go to trylgc.com/VS25. Use discount code VS25 for 25% off anything that you buy, any of these tests, whether you want to see your testosterone, different vitamin deficiencies, all kinds of stuff. But check out the site, listed in the link below. Okay, so number 1, traffic and transportation. So specifically in the city of Rome, in the heart of the city, it's so crazy that the cars are small, right? We're used to, if you're in America, used to like these bigger automobiles. You won't really find one American car out there. You'll find a lot of European cars, you'll find smart cars, you'll find these like cars that could literally fit one person in there. They have a lot of mopeds, very little motorcycles, because even those seem kind of big. But everything is so jam-packed, and if you're like me, who is not that great of a parallel parker, it's your worst nightmare. I mean, these people are within like 1 inch on each side, and these people are like pros at parking. Another thing I noticed is like the lanes are more of a suggestion than anything, and even some like these one-way roads, you'll have another guy going the other way, and like they're almost trading paint, but they're not. When they get by each other, it's crazy, man. Because again, like in America at least, we're used to like more space and bigger roads, and people drive these ginormous SUVs, and we have amazing parking lots, right? Unless you live in the city, then you probably got a parallel park, but I'm telling you, it's nothing like Rome. It's absolutely ridiculous. So long story short, it's not even worth renting a car out there because you're never gonna be able to park anywhere, and you're probably gonna get like a lot of anxiety and stress just trying to drive, right? I didn't really notice road rage. It seems like people are just used to that, and people aren't just like fixated on their phones like they are here. So I think people are really good and on their braking because again, they're driving like this close to somebody, man. It's nuts. But there's a lot of transportation choices available. For example, you could take like the subway in a lot of places, and then they have all those like, bikes or like those stand-up scooters with the motors that you can rent. And my wife and I actually did rent that. And surprisingly, you can't drive those on the sidewalk, you gotta drive them on the street. But surprisingly, you feel pretty safe, even though you got all these cars like buzzing right by you. Like, I don't think I do that in the States, but again, because people aren't like on their cell phones, they're actually watching the road, and their foot's probably like on the brake most of the time because you're ready to stop immediately. So it does feel surprisingly safe, and it's very fun riding like those motorized scooters, around. And my wife and I happened to just stumble across a castle. You never know what you're gonna get, and I'll talk more about like the cool architecture and all the buildings in a moment. But even that aside, like we walked a lot, and that's how you really want to experience a city like Rome, because you never know what you're gonna miss. We happened to stumble across quite a few interesting places just by traversing everything on foot, probably walking, maybe even up to 10 hours a day. So that was quite interesting. But anyway, going to Venice, and we took the bullet train. That's something they don't really have in the States, but the bullet train's really cool, really convenient. We got over there in about 3 to 4 hours. It's pretty roomy. It's actually more comfortable than the airplane was. So, I caught up on some reading and stuff. But anyway, we took the bullet train to Venice. When you first get there, the train station, you look out, it's amazing. It's almost like you're on a movie set. Like you see all these boats and you see the canal, and there's this giant bridge, and there's all these people out there. It really feels like you're in a movie or something, right? Like Indiana Jones when he went to Venice, right? In The Last Crusade. Basically, it's like a postcard. So it's really cool. Anyway, we walked over to the hotel, which was about a 10-minute walk. You could take like a boat taxi to the hotel. I think that was like 75 euros, which is insane because it's like a 10-minute walk, and they got all these guys. Everybody's trying to make money there, by the way, and I'll talk about that a little later, but it makes sense because it's like such a tourist destination, and people have, you know, a little bit of money they're going to spend if you go there. Otherwise, you're going to starve and you can't enjoy yourself. We'll talk about all that a little bit later in the video. The cool thing about Venice, so they didn't have those motorized scooters or anything because probably people fall in the water, right? Or the canal. I actually kind of wonder how many people fall in that every year. I was just wondering the whole time, just walking, you know, within a foot of it. I'm like, and because again, when people are like drinking and having a good time on vacation, I'm like, I wonder how many people actually fall in the canal. But everything is like on boats, man. Like the UPS truck is like on boats. They're delivering Amazon packages on boats. There's like a trash compactor boat, you know, boat taxis, everything. Some of the cool stuff we did, for example, obviously we got to get the gondola right? You kind of have to do that at least once. And the interesting thing about that, so in Italy, people drive like they do in America as far as like on the right side of the road. But in the canals, you have to be on the left side when you're going forward. Part of the reason why the boats actually have to travel on the left side of the canal or slash, you know, equivalent of the road is because of the gondolas. They have this huge boat oar on the right side. So basically they would just hit the wall. They'd hit land if, you know, they were basically moving from the right side. So the whole system's designed because of those boats. One fun thing that my wife and I did, and I'd recommend, I like to be more hands-on and do stuff. So yeah, it's cool sitting in the gondola, whatever, taking it all in. But we actually rented kayaks and we were out there ourselves, maneuvering around there and then going even out into the ocean, which was really cool. That was one of the highlights for sure. But just like Rome, where we walked around a lot, we basically walked the entire Venice, you know, and I even actually had a map. So I kind of at least had an idea of where we were going. Of course, we also used like, you know, the Google Maps thing to kind of like, it gets a little confusing because it just assumes, okay, for part of the journey, you're gonna walk, and for part of it, you're gonna be in a boat. And then, so we were just walking the most time, and then we had to like kind of take a couple detours because, you know, we couldn't walk on water. But where I'm going with all the walking and exploring everything, number 2 on the list, the architecture. Like, it's absolutely extraordinary. Like, it's really cool in Venice, and they have a lot of amazing churches, but really, Rome is where it's at. Like, some of these churches, you know, whether you're religious or not, you gotta visit them, man. They're just insane, and like they're thousands of years old, and you know, built of marble, and the ceilings are just like just such a work of art. Like when you look at the ceiling, you should have seen the size of one of these organs in the church. I mean, that alone was like, I don't know, 30 feet high. It's ridiculous, like the scale of everything, because like I mentioned, like the cars and are tiny and everything's so confined. But then like you have these most extravagant churches that are like palaces basically. And I'll talk about the Vatican City a little bit later in the Sistine Chapel and everything. And there's a funny, interesting story related to Sylvester Stallone out there. He was out there at the same time, basically. As far as like the architecture, you know, like I said, when my wife and I were on those motorized scooters, we just happened to come across like a castle. You know, another big thing too are all the fountains. Like, they're insane. And I'm going to talk about like the water. They're very proud of like their water out there, which we'll talk about later when I get into like the food and drinks and everything. But speaking about the architecture, like some of the stuff, you just have to like stand in front of it and like marvel at it. It's just, we don't have that in America, man. Like, our stuff aren't built to last. That stuff's thousands of years old. It's insane. Well, anyway, number 3 on the list are like the different tours, because you have to, if you're a tourist, you kind of got to go on these tours, right? And we went on 3 different ones. So we checked out the Bone Crypt in the underground catacombs, which you couldn't take pictures or videos, unfortunately. Another thing that we did, like I mentioned, I was going to bring up the Vatican City and the Sistine Chapel. So we went out there to see like the church of all churches, right? At least if you're Catholic. Quite amazing. And I gotta say though, because when you do the tour that we did, you end in the Sistine Chapel, right? Which should be the highlight. But I gotta say, looking at everything else and then finally getting to the Sistine Chapel, I was a little disappointed in the sense that I think my expectations were just higher after just walking through some of the churches, you know, slash basilicas in Rome. Like, they were so amazing. And then you get to the Sistine Chapel and, you know, you see that famous painting, right, of the 2 fingers. I thought it would be bigger. Like, I really did. It was just like such a small segment of the ceiling. And again, you can't take pictures in there. Like, I literally thought that was the entire ceiling, but it's just like a little section of it. And I was like, I was almost thinking, like, is this the pre-Sistine Chapel? Like, are we going to go in the real room and see the real painting? But no, that was it. That was a little underwhelming. But the overall experience just in the Vatican City, like you guys got to go there, right? Oh, but here's the funny thing. So in the Sistine Chapel, basically, one of the guys recognized me from the channel, the Viking Samurai channel, right? And he said, "You'll appreciate this," because obviously I cover Stallone. He knows I'm a big Stallone fan, right? And he said, "Stallone was here yesterday." And he even showed me like a picture he took with Stallone. So that was really cool. And of course, it was out there like, I think Stallone posted stuff on his Instagram, but it was out there in some articles that Stallone was in Italy. You know, he had visited like the Sistine Chapel, etc. And it's just, man, I missed him by one day. Like the day prior, we actually did the tour at the Colosseum. Colosseum's really cool, and they give you like a lot of amazing history about the whole thing. So the Roman Empire, you know, was insane back in the day because they would basically conquer people and they would enslave them. You know, they would enslave French people and Spanish people and people from Northern Africa, I think Liberia, I forget which country exactly, but basically those are the people that built all this stuff. Now, obviously the Roman Empire, they had like architects and engineers, but to do the actual labor, it was really like the people that they conquered from, like I said, France, Spain, Northern Africa, etc., and even enslaved some Roman citizens. The one cool thing, though, about the Roman Empire is that even if you were a slave, like you could eventually become a Roman citizen. So, you know, there was hope, even at that time, at least, to be part of a better part of the society. So the other interesting thing about like the Colosseum is, so even the gladiators who would fight each other and, you know, entertain the audience, they were slaves. But here's how it ties in an interesting way. So if a gladiator were to get killed fighting in the Colosseum, then the emperor would actually have to compensate his master, or whatever person that owned him, because, you know, obviously the gladiator would have been the owner's property. So not that many gladiators actually got killed in the arena, but a lot of them did die. I forget the average age, it was maybe like 22, right? That's how long these guys lived. So here's the thing, like, it's almost like a loophole they had. So if the gladiator got injured, but he was still alive when he left, and then he died later, either through an infection or whatever other reason, then the emperor would not have to pay, you know, his owner because he didn't, quote, die in the arena. So that was kind of a loophole. But anyway, the tour guide gives all kinds of interesting history. So apparently after the Roman Empire would conquer an area, they would celebrate, right? And the Colosseum was free for the citizens. And sometimes the events would go on for like 100 days, where they would have animals fighting each other, you know, like bears and lions and all this other stuff. And then later in the evening, it would be like the gladiators fighting each other. But it's really just to entertain the Roman citizens. And, you know, obviously, depending on your social class, you would get better seats or worse seats, you know, in the arena. You know, the nosebleed section, for example, must have sucked because I don't think anyone had like the equivalent of like opera glasses or anything to watch anything. But really interesting history, and, you know, a lot of the stuff would take place like underneath the floor. So like when you watch the movie Gladiator, when something just comes up like an animal or a person or something like that, they really did that. They were like, it was like a stage, like a play, right? Where they had all these trap doors and ropes and pulleys and everything. So kind of crazy to think about back then. And also one of the reasons why the whole floor was like covered with sand and gravel is basically to soak up all the, you know, the blood and excrement and all this other stuff from like the animals fighting and getting killed, and the people, you know, a lot of times not getting killed like I mentioned, but getting maimed. So crazy time, but a very interesting history, and obviously a place you gotta visit. You know, Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris even had their fight over there. One cool thing is apparently there are 3 cats that live in the Colosseum. I unfortunately, you know, didn't get to see any of them, but I did find one of their houses. But that leads me to number 4, the animals, and I'll talk about like the insects too, because that was quite annoying. But so Rome has a lot of cats. You'll see like cats wandering all over, which is really cool. And a lot of people have dogs and they walk their dogs, and, you know, so a lot of cats, a lot of dogs in the city, obviously pigeons and other things. But now when you go over to Venice, there are barely any cats, though I did stumble across 3 of them. One of them was really cool, by the way, walking by himself at night, just, you know, amongst people, and everybody was very excited by him. But it makes sense there wouldn't be that many cats overall in Venice, you know, because it is surrounded by water. So not as many cats, so it's very exciting when you see one out there. And then obviously they got Venetian pigeons and they got seagulls, and one of the pigeons actually landed on my wife's foot, so they're very friendly, you know. We did feed them a little bit of stuff, you know, a little bit of bread, a little bit of chips. Probably not the best for their diet, but they seem to enjoy it quite a bit. Oh, now the thing with insects, apparently there's like a lot of bees out there. So even when you look at like the fresh fish market in the town square, for example, it was insane. It was like covered by bees, which didn't really make it seem that appetizing. One thing I did find very annoying though were the mosquitoes, because you know it was very warm when we went, so I'm always in like a t-shirt and shorts, and all the eating it's funner just to do outside of the restaurant, right? Most of the tables are outside, people are just having a good time. But there were a couple of restaurants, not all of them, but a couple where, man, my ankles and leg just got bit like crazy by mosquitoes. So it's like, I can't even enjoy the meals. Again, that didn't happen at every restaurant, but it was quite annoying. But one really funny mosquito story, and I thought this was a good idea at the time, because our hotel room was right on the canal, right? Had a great view. I figured, oh, let's leave the window open one night and just get a nice cool breeze in there, right? I didn't think there'd be all these mosquitoes. This was before, you know, I got bit, you know, eating my meals. I didn't think they were really out there. But long story short, my wife woke up the next day just like covered in mosquito bites. Like she even had them on her face. It was insane. But anyway, we left in the morning, spent the whole day out there exploring, and then we came back to the room. And we had noticed, you know, all these mosquitoes in the room, like you could just see them everywhere. So, like I ended up killing them all with like one of the bath towels, and they must have really ate/drank a lot of blood, because when I would kill one, it would just splatter all like with a lot of blood all over the wall, which was insane. I cleaned it up pretty good, but you know, I always made a joke to my wife, you know, if you go missing on this trip and they search our room, they're gonna think foul play or something crazy going on, because he literally got your blood all over the room, and I like cleaned it up as best I can. But yeah, that could have been interesting to try to talk myself out of that. You know, it's like, oh well, she just got bit by a bunch of mosquitoes. That's why all the blood's out there, right? Okay, so number 5 on the list, we got to talk about the food. Like a lot of people like Italian food, right? We got a lot of Italian restaurants in America. Oh, it'll never be the same though, man. Like the food, the pizza was absolutely amazing. There was one pizza place in particular. Now this was when we were in Venice, and we had actually took a boat taxi to Murano. It's this island off of Venice right here. So we had taken the boat taxi there. And you know, with our hotel, they said, "Oh, we're gonna give you a free tour to the glass factory," which was amazing, until it wasn't, which I'll get into when I talk about the Salesmen, right? But anyway, as far as the food goes, yeah, one pizza place in particular on the Murano Island, it was just the most incredible pizza I've ever had in my life. Now, all the pizza in Italy in general was amazing, but this one was just like on another level. This was like heaven, man. Ooh. I don't think I'm ever gonna have pizza that good again, unfortunately. So, you know, it is what it is. And then some of the other meals, for example, one of the lasagnas we had, best lasagna ever. It was insane. And, you know, we had gotten lasagna at a few other restaurants. It could never live up to that, though. And then there's another really cool meal named gnocchi, and it's kind of like a pasta made out of potatoes and stuff. One of the 5 times we got it was just so insane. The other 5 or 4 times were just so disappointing. So look, in general in Italy, you're gonna get amazing food, but there are definitely gonna be some restaurants that stick out. Some meals that just stick out way and are so much better than the rest. The desserts are insanely good too. If you guys go out there, you have to get the cannolis, the fresh cannolis, man. They have a lot of great desserts, but get those cannolis. Now, being in Italy, obviously, you have to eat all that great food. An interesting thing is, there's so many carbs, right? Because pizzas, pastas, you know, a lot of fat with it, great desserts. There's not a lot of overweight people like in Rome or Venice, surprisingly, and I think because the food is so fresh, it doesn't have like all these preservatives and that garbage. Oh, and then one last thing when it comes to the food. So obviously, you know, the Italian food's amazing. They did have a few sushi restaurants we didn't go to because I told my wife, look, we're in Italy. We're only eating Italian food, right? Speaking of which, one of them I found interesting was that, and again, this is one of the benefits when you just walk around everywhere. We stumbled across a pizza place in the back corner of an alley, and then found out like it's still from the original family from like 1888, and it was like the first real pizza place in Rome that they developed. And you know, they cook it exactly the same way with these electric ovens. etc., like the process. So that pizza was exquisite. you know, very proud family-run business. And you should have seen their dog. Like, what an amazing creature. Like, it had this long, blonde, flowy, like, fur. It was insane. And I told him, like, you have one of the most beautiful dogs I've ever seen. Anyway, oh, and then speaking about the food and everything, like, okay, so the service is amazing, but apparently I guess they don't tip in Italy. It's not even expected, which is weird if you come from America, right? You don't tip a waiter or waitress in America. It's very frowned upon. But that's not something they expect. I think some of the more touristy areas, maybe they actually do enjoy getting a tip. But the thing is, if you pay with like your credit card or something, there's not even a place to write a tip amount on. So unless you literally have cash, you can't even tip if you wanted to. So that's another thing that's quite shocking. So number 6 on the list are the drinks. And because it's a touristy area, it almost seems like, maybe it's an Italian thing too. People just drink throughout the day, right? Like, I don't think they're alcoholics or anything, but they probably got like a little buzz going on most of the day. And one of the more popular drinks is called like a spritz. It's kind of like, like a wine and a soda water type thing. And they got like different ones. For example, I think there were like 4 different ones. Some of them are really sweet, some of them are a little more bitter, etc. But people are just drinking that throughout the day, man. Almost like they're at some Mexican vacation resort. You know how people drink tequila or margaritas all day at those? They're just drinking their spritz all day in Italy, which is interesting. One thing I noticed, I'm a big coffee guy, right? I really like the taste. I don't actually really feel the caffeine that much, to be honest. And I'm used to American portions where we get these big, every time I go to Starbucks, they're like, what size? I just give me the biggest one you got, man. That's how I order my drink, But in Italy, it's almost comical. Like, you'll get their Americano or the cappuccino or the whatever drink. It's like this big. It's like, you could just take a shot and that's it. But, I like to make things last, so I just like baby the thing and make that thing last as long as I can, So it's crazy though. Like, it's literally like this big. It doesn't make any sense. Another thing I found interesting was the water. Like, they're very proud of their water. And the aqueducts that they have, and they have just these like water faucets basically throughout the city, and the water is always running, and they're like, yeah, drink that, it's perfectly fine. And you're just like, because again, I'm in America, I'm just like, no, I'm not gonna drink that tap water. But we did actually drink some during the Coliseum tour. It's quite refreshing. You can obviously buy water bottles all over the place, but people just say, look, buy your water bottle and just fill it up in these public fountains, just like on the corner of the street with the water running and people just going up over there and filling up their water. It's, man, can you imagine doing that in America? Like, I remember growing up in the 80s and when the kids would just drink water out of the water hose in the yard, right? I never really did that, but tap water just seemed safer back then. But now it's like, I don't think anybody in their right mind would drink tap water in America. But in Italy, it's almost like everybody in their right mind will, of course, drink their tap water because it just makes sense. And it is quite refreshing. It does taste good. I will say that. Okay, so number 7 on the list. Basically, everybody is just like trying to sell you stuff, and I get it's a touristy area, but it does get kind of annoying. So, for example, like our first day out, right when we leave the hotel, and we must have just looked like marks to this guy. He like comes up to us. I think he said he was like from Senegal or something. He just like, oh, obviously they compliment you, right? They put you in a good mood. Oh, you are such a great couple. You guys look great together. And it's like, okay, cool. Who doesn't like a compliment, right? He just starts putting stuff on you, like these like little African bracelets and giving you this stuff. Say, oh, I support my family. I'm going back to my country tomorrow, and this is just extra stuff. You guys could just have this. I'm like, okay, cool. But then, of course, like he wants, oh, can you help support the family? 200 euros. It's like, what, 200 euros? Are you insane? Like this is like $1 bracelet, man. But anyway, we ended up giving him like 20 euros to leave us alone. But he had put all this stuff on us, like, oh, here's the leather belt, here's this, here's that, And then when he realized he wasn't getting his 200 euros and it was only going to get 20 out of us, he started taking some of that stuff back. So I think we spent 20 euros on like this bracelet that probably cost 50 cents or something. But anyway, it's to support his family, in Senegal, because he was like going to leave tomorrow. Funny enough, we actually ended up running into him the next day. So, I guess he didn't have to go back like he said he did. All over the place, especially in Rome, man, they always got like these bags that they're selling. My wife bought a bunch of purses, by the way. you know, made in Italy, Italian leather. These are really nice. And I bought what I call a man purse, you know, on Seinfeld, I guess they call it a European carry-all.
Someone took my European carry-all! Yo, what? It's a black leather thing with a strap. You mean a purse?
But I found this to be quite helpful, you know. I put all my euros in here, you know, I got my phone, my sunglasses, my map in here so everybody knows I'm a tourist, etc. But I wonder why these never took off in America, man, because I don't mind using this and like walking around out here with this thing, you know. And if people want to call it a purse, so be it. I think it looks kind of cool. Anyway, get one of these bags if you out there on vacation, because it's very convenient, and it's my cat's knocking the camera over, and it's pure 100% Italian leather, so quality product. Damn it, Ollie, stop. Keeps knocking my camera over, man. Maybe he doesn't want me to have a purse, I don't know.
A man carries a wallet.
You know, the very fact that you oppose this makes me think I'm onto something.
Oh, but going back to Venice and that Murano glass factory that I had mentioned earlier, so they make all this cool artwork. It's absolutely insane. In fact, they made this whole Ferrari horse thing within 2 minutes, you know, and I got the video like playing right here. You could check that out. It's quite an interesting process. I mean, these are true artists, but here's the thing that I found annoying. So the hotel said, hey, you could go to the glass factory for free. We'll take you the taxi there. You just got to pay for your taxi the way back. It's like, okay, cool. Yeah, we'll do that tour. And there's like a couple different couples there, right? For whatever reason, like the guy giving the tour latched on to me and my wife. And, you know, it made it a little uncomfortable because he's just stalking us like a vulture the whole time. So we're just like looking at some of the stuff, and he would, you know, have to come, oh, you like that piece, you know, and like all this, and telling us like, oh, I could get you a good deal on that piece. Oh, you like that one? You know, it's like, look, man, you know, so whatever, we play along and we find out, you know, like we really like this cat in an airplane. This is pretty cool, you know. And he's like, oh, that's 6,500 euros. You're just like, what? Yeah, I'm not gonna buy that. And he would always say, oh, you know, no pressure, no pressure. It's like, no, I feel pressure, man. Like, I don't want this stuff. Go to that, latch onto that couple. But the guy stayed with us the whole time, you know. I had mentioned, like, because of what happened at the Sistine Chapel, I was like, hey, was Sylvester Stallone here, by the way? Which he said he was, but, you know, you can't really say too much, so he wouldn't tell me what Stallone bought. But I'm like, look, Stallone could buy that cat airplane thing. The $6,500 for him is nothing, you know? So I don't know if he bought that or what he would have bought, but overall, you know, great trip. My thoughts on vacations, like, I'm not the biggest vacation guy. Like, my wife likes traveling a lot more than me. You know, there's always like a level of work and stress, and obviously vacations are very expensive, but there are a lot of benefits, you know. Like, if you go with your significant other, like, it's a way to reconnect. It's also a way to kind of see like how other people live, you know, like the locals, for example. Like, I've come to realize in Venice, nobody has like a dryer. Everybody just like dries their clothes outside. It's like another world out there, man. So it's interesting. Even the day we went to like the Coliseum, it was very early. We took the subway, and just the hustle and bustle, man. It was just like standing room only in the subway, and everyone was like going to work. So, you know, you kind of experience like the life of just the citizens out there. You kind of get a sense of that, man. And then just stumbling like in Venice, at the end of the day, when my wife and I were hanging out, we heard some like live music and went out there, and you could just tell this is just like a fun little place. Like, a lot of the locals would just hang out and have their drinks and listen to some music at night. So you get a little sense of like, you know, the life out there. But you know what I find the most important thing, I guess, on a vacation, like, these are really great memories. Like, I will have and I will cherish, and I'll share, you know, with my wife forever. So, you know, the pros definitely outweigh the cons on vacations in my opinion, even though I'm not the biggest vacation guy. But these, you know, like I said, you got to experience that at least once, right, while you're here on this planet, and just make the best of it. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. I had a great time there. And again, if you'd never been to Italy, you got to go there at least once. And there's so many great cities. Like, I went to Rome and Venice. There's so many other cities I want to go to down the line, but I say you guys got to go there at least once.